Hello everyone, I hope life is treating you kindly. I'm Lubomira and thank you for joining me today. Welcome to all my crafty friends, new and returning. I always look forward to this time of the week when we get together for some crafting fun. If you're new to my channel, I'm glad you found your way over here and I invite you to check out more of my videos. I love sharing my projects with you all and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to spend a few crafty moments with me. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. By hitting that little bell, you'll get notified every time I post something new and you'll never miss out on any of the crafty goodness. This week, I'm sharing another holiday card. I've noticed that many of you enjoy when I create things by thinking outside of the box, and I'd like to think that this card is no exception. I'm excited to show you this card, so let's get into the video. To create this card, I used several Dollar Tree products. In fact, I think this has the most Dollar Tree products I've ever used in one project. I used a Dollar Tree metal die, a stencil, 2 alphabet stamp sets, 3D fabric paint, glitter, baker's twine, and a paper pack. I started off with ink blending a part of a card panel. I wanted to coordinate colors in this card, and one of the easiest ways to do this is by using ink you're already working with to color your plain white cardstock. This way you never have to worry about finding the right colors. I only needed a portion of the panel because there would only be a small part visible in the finished card design. When I was happy with the application, I set the panel aside and worked on the next part of the card. As I mentioned, I like using things in multiple ways beyond their intended usage. Many of you liked the snowflake card I made a few videos back, and the concept I use there is one that I like to apply universally to all kinds of supplies. I concentrate on shapes rather than the whole or what the particular supply is intended to represent. In the corner die, rather than just seeing a corner die, I looked at the shape of it and what other things it reminded me of, which then led me to create the snowflake. This approach can be really helpful because you can see relationships between shapes and what they make when they come together. So where am I going with this? Well, I came across this cooking themed stencil and I love it, but I know many people would pass it up because it's a very specific theme. Now, before you go thinking that I love cooking, I don't. In fact, there was a time when I actually pretended not to know how to cook because I dislike it so much. And I did a pretty convincing job because my husband didn't think I could boil water. Much to his surprise, years into our relationship, I had to make something, I think it was for a party, and it was one of the best dishes served. He looked at me literally and asked, "Wait, you can cook?" I'm Polish, of course I know how to cook. It's like saying Latin people can't dance. Of course they can, it's in the blood. Anyway, back to the stencil. I actually think it's pretty versatile. For those of you that love cooking, it's great as is. I can also see it being customized by adding details to it like labels on the bottle or jar and even different pictures on the apron for different seasons. A turkey or pie for fall, a flower for spring. The oven mitts were what caught my eye, and someone looking at them may only see oven mitts because it's a cooking themed stencil, but they have a simple shape that they can be made into mittens for a winter themed card instead. And that's what I meant by looking at things differently. Rather than looking at the intended use, I like looking at the shape and seeing if they can be used as something else. I ink blended the mitts on a piece of scrap cardstock. I taped down the cardstock, but not the stencil since it's such a simple shape to line up. But by all means, if you're more comfortable by taping things down, please do so. I used the same red Distress Oxide Inks Lumberjack Plaid as I did earlier for the partial panel. I applied the color so that it had a smooth finish. Before removing the stencil, I traced the outline of the mitts to create a faux stamped look. I didn't trace the entire shape, leaving the wrists open. This part of the mitten won't be visible, as you'll see in the finished card. I fussy cut the mittens out with scissors, something that wasn't too difficult to do since the shape is very fussy cut friendly. To add a little cute detail, I drew in a white snowflake shape on top of the mittens using, at first, a white gel pen, which seemed to be running low, so I switched to a white paint pen. After drawing the snowflake, I applied glitter to the top of it using a glue pen. I applied the glitter twice to add a little bit more substance to the snowflake. In one of the paper packs, I came across a craft colored paper. I trimmed it into a standard size panel and then applied it to a white card panel using liquid glue. The paper was far too thin to hold up on its own, so it was necessary to add the additional panel. Next, I die cut a gentle wave or hill into the bottom of the craft panel using one of the Dollar Tree dies. Now, while I never really have problems with mint tape or any low tack tape in general, I will say that papers that have a texture, I avoid putting tapes directly on them. Even though they are low tack, I find that mint tape does sometimes pull and tear at those textured papers. To avoid this, I try to tape dies off to the side of the panel, either in places I'm not going to be using or directly down to the cutting plate. The next part was more experimental, and I was happy to see that it worked. Using some Dollar Tree 3D fabric paint, I applied little dots to look like snowflakes falling across the larger part of the die-cut craft panel. You could accomplish a similar look if you have a stencil. The fabric paint actually does resemble liquid enamel dots and makes a suitable substitute. I also added a thicker layer of the white fabric paint to the wrists of the mittens. The smaller dots dried fairly quickly, within about half an hour, while the thicker layers I placed on the wrists of the mittens took overnight. I added glitter to the wet paint on the mittens to give them a little bit more sparkle. I set the mittens and panel aside to dry and moved on to the sentiment. Using a combination of Dollar Tree large and small alphabet stamp sets, I created the greeting Merry Christmas. I stamped the words in Versamark ink and then applied white embossing powder before heat setting them with my heat tool. I repeated the process twice to get a nice smooth white finish across the sentiment. Now, I've mentioned this in previous videos. Since these stamps are so affordable, I purchased multiple sets so that creating words with double letters is easier. Of course, if you don't have multiple sets, you can still accomplish the same thing by moving the letters and stamping multiple times. I find that using a stamp platform is especially useful when doing phrases like this. I don't show this, but I arranged the first word first, then stamped it for the position, rotated my stamping plate, and arranged the second word and attached it to the opposite side of the positioning platform. This way, I have both words positioned so I can restamp either word without removing it. You can do a similar technique in a hinge platform like the Misty by arranging the words on top and bottom of the door and moving the card panel rather than the whole stamp plate. When I had my greeting ready, I trimmed down the panel to cut down on some of the bulk in the card and then glued it to the bottom of a white card base using liquid glue. Next, I attached the craft panel to the top of the white card base using foam tape. As you can see, the red sentiment panel is only visible at the bottom and the rest is covered by the snow falling craft panel. To help me line up everything, I used my stamping platform and pushed all my layers into the corner before attaching them. All that's left is to add my mittens and to add the final finishing touches to this card. I added a red connecting string to the mittens, holding the string in place with foam squares on the back. Next, I attached the mittens to the front of the card with those same foam squares and arranged the string in a loop across the front of the card. I used glue to tack the string into place so that it would hold its shape. Lastly, I added some clear drops to the front of the card for, you guessed it, more shine. And that's it for this card. How stinking cute is this card? You'd never guess we started with cooking mitts and transformed it into something completely new. I really enjoyed making this card, and I hope you liked it too. Leave me your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. This is one of my favorite parts of the week. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did sharing it with you. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, please leave me those comments below. I'm always so excited to see the notifications pop up, and I always wonder who's going to be first to leave the comment. I hope you'll join me next time for another project. Until then, have an amazing week, and I hope life treats you kindly. Take care. Bye.